Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Jim Carrey Project. This is the project where we are going through all of Jim Carrey's movies in chronological order. I am your host, Brian Kondrach, and with me, as always, is
Carrie Grant.
And today we just got finished watching Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond, with featuring a very special, contractually obligated mention of Tony Clifton.
Does it say that?
That's the full title
That's
of
really
the movie.
Funny.
Yeah, this is 2017, hour and 34 minutes, directed by Chris Smith, stars Jim Carrey, Danny DeVito, Milos Forman, and all of the people that were involved in the filming of the movie Man on the Moon. This is a documentary looking at Jim's transformation into that character and kind of the making of that movie. And I think it's a really good way to wrap up our series on his movies. So let's just jump right in. And what'd you think?
I think it was my favorite one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a movie, but it's.
Yeah.
I think it might have been. Yeah. It was really good.
I think, like I said, it is a great way to put a pin in what we have been doing, and I don't know why I'm going to get emotional.
We both cried a lot. During this one too.
It is a really good movie, and
Yeah.
it's like, thank goodness that somebody had the wherewithal to kind of film all of this behind the scenes stuff, because to understand just like how Jim Carrey was so method acting and so into this character, and just like his perspective on just like what it means to live and what we are as humans, like it fits so well with this worldview that I think Andy Kaufman had, and then also with all the movies that he has been drawn to in his movies, and he talks about that.
Yeah.
So it's like an hour and a half long. Starts basically in the beginning of when the Andy Kaufman movie comes out, and then goes till the end of it, and then a little bit afterwards. So,
yeah. I mean, it wasn't clear on like were they always planning on making the documentary? Jim kind of mentioned at one point like there's always someone kind of doing behind the scenes stuff, and so I wonder if like that's a normal thing. I'm guessing they're saying. I didn't even know that, but then it's like, well, this is so crazy and cool and intense, and so like pretty early on they're like, this is gonna be a documentary as well, or because it didn't sound like they were like, we're gonna make it like before anything happened, let's make a documentary while we do this. Well, I don't know if anyone even knew what Jim was really gonna do.
Yeah,
like how would you know that he was like going to be Andy?
Yeah, he makes
in real
that decision
life kind of thing.
Like,
yeah. So
like,
like,
what's happening?
Yeah. So I think it probably just early on they were like, this is good stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I even wrote down, and he said like he felt like the real movie was happening behind the camera. Yeah.
Even while they were filming
Yes.
Man on the Moon, because he was living such an intense version of
like this is the real movie.
This is not the Man on the Moon. Like this is not the Andy Kaufman movie. This is like the Andy Kaufman movie. I have so many notes, and it's like all of a sudden
it's all very
meta. Now that we're talking about
it,
it's like I don't know necessarily how to talk about it anymore. Like I have these notes, and there was these moments, and just like pure emotion, and it's like, they had all this stuff in 1998 when they were filming it. The movie was coming out, and then 20 years later, they've just been sitting on it. So it's like, what do we do with it? Well, here, let's do this with it.
Yeah.
But there's just so many things that Jim decided to do as Andy that, like.
No, he was Andy.
He
did make a decision. Like, it was very. Go ahead.
I don't know. I just don't know. I thought this was gonna be like a real easy conversation.
No, I think it will. Like, it will. I think it will be good. Yeah. But it's like hard to get into it right now because there's just so much.
Yeah. It reminds me the intensity of like emotion after watching this movie, and it reminds me, and I think it's because they reference it a bunch with like the Truman Show being this movie about a guy that doesn't know in a movie versus Andy Kaufman versus Jim Carrey being these people that know they're in movies, and like they're the ones that know it's all fake, it's all life in general and stuff.
Right.
Like I have as intense emotions about this revisiting this as I did the day that we watched both of those movies on the same time, at the same day. And it was
Is that what we did?
Yeah, we watched the Truman Show, followed up directly by Man on the Moon, and it was intense. It was a lot. It was intense to a level that was just like, I don't think I could ever do that again.
Yeah, I remember afterwards we were like, it was too much emotion in one day, and different kinds of emotion and different. I don't know.
And I feel that same way today. Also,
I feel that way too.
Go ahead.
No, I feel like you're on a roll.
I don't have anything. I'm like, what do I do?
No, okay. So, like, you heard, well, Jim like became Andy.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've kind of heard that and you knew this was happening or whatever. But like, I like how he was like, no, really, like, Andy just like tapped me on the shoulder and he was like, I got this. I'm playing myself in this movie. And like, I don't know. That's just so cool and weird. And I don't understand it. And he didn't talk about it as much after the beginning. I mean, sometimes he was referring to himself as Andy. And like, but then sometimes he would say, well, I did make some decisions, or did I go too far or whatever. So there's still like sort of Jim was sort of there. But like, I think he really truly does feel like he was Andy.
Yeah.
He was not himself.
Yeah.
During that period of time.
A big loss of self-identity when it's like Jim does not exist. Even like watching the documentary, Jim made Andy made the decision to do this.
Yeah.
Andy did this.
Yeah.
And it's still like 100% to this day, like not Jim Carrey's movie at all, which is so incredible. And it's scary that like as humans and creators and communicators that we can reach in such an intense level of otherworldness.
That's what I think I'm trying to, that's where I was at. Like, it feels just surreal.
Ethereal, surreal, and to watch it all happen and see it happen and talk about it and then see it happen again. It's like...
And I believe it. Like, I'm sure there's some people who will watch this and be like,
Jim's just being a jerk to be a jerk.
Yeah, he's playing a joke on everybody right now. Like, but I don't believe that. Like, I truly believe everything he's saying, and that's what happens.
And it's to revisit, the actual movie. Like when we watched it, it's you're 100% believing that Jim Carrey is Andy Kaufman just because he does it so well. And it's like visiting this, like he really was. Like to have that knowledge that that's what he believed and that's what he was. Like you just let yourself go to the universe and it takes you on a new place.
I mean, and just going back to Andy, Jim being Andy.
Yeah.
Like, at the end, it was the impression that everybody was really sad. Like kind of Andy was leaving, like, and it was over. And I think for the most part, like, people, like, really enjoyed it. And, like, it seems like everybody bought into it and, like, was, there. And even, I just don't even know where to go with this. I mean, the fact that his like family was treating him as Andy, that his daughter that he never even met, like that Andy never met in real life, like came and talked to her dad it's all like so much. I can't.
The choices and like, what is that conversation even like? You know, they talked a little about like what Jim talks about the conversation was about where would Andy be now, but it's like, what did they really talk about? And like, if you've never met somebody, like that's a conversation between those two people.
Well, and he has a daughter too. Yeah. So like, I'm sure for him that was very emotional. Yeah. As Jim being there somewhere. Yeah. Somewhere in the brain, like he's still there. But I mean,
it's rare that people get an opportunity to talk to their loved ones after they're gone. Yeah. And this is 100% place where happening. It was like, you're in it. It's him, and it's like it's real. Now there's the whole stuff with like Jerry Lawler.
Now that's a whole different story. I actually do feel very bad for Jerry.
So in the Andy Kaufman thing, Jerry Lawler and Andy Kaufman worked together, did a bunch of wrestling stuff, and they were actually like friends in real life.
They kind of had planned it. Yeah, they knew they were both in on the joke, and they were working sort of together in their fake but real. Yeah,
they were wrestling. They were mad at each other, butted heads, but it was all part of the bit. Yes. Where in this one, it makes it feel like this is where method acting can go too far, or like really like letting go and be like, it's not my choice. It's like, well, you're being an ass. You're being a jerk to one of your like who was a friend to Andy Kaufman. It's like,
so Jim, it kept saying like Jim was like he just kept thinking like what would Andy do? And Andy was always taking things really far, and then for some reason though, like him and like the real Jerry were never in on the. They never got together on the joke. Yeah. Like he just kept going too far with Jerry. And I felt really bad because Jerry was like, well, but we were friends. Yeah. And now everyone else gets to have these amazing connection with you as Andy, and I had a connection with the real Andy, but I'm not getting what everybody else is getting out of the situation.
I didn't even think about it like that, where it's like
I thought he felt sad.
He looked very sad in the moments and these the discussions of like what it was. You're like, Jerry, you're a big wrestling guy. You've got such like a little like teddy bear heart.
I think he felt like he was getting picked on all the time, and like
not treated fairly by someone who he actually knew.
Yeah, that part was the only part for me where I was like, I mean, Jim should feel bad, I think, about that. I mean, and what I think his view is that I didn't make those decisions. Andy made those decisions.
Yeah.
But you know, you could still be Andy and be like, but Andy was a kind person, so maybe I should have some kindness. There was a couple moments where you saw those two talking.
Yeah.
And then when he got hit on that talk show,
yeah,
there maybe was like a little bit of a connection there, but he really didn't drop that bit with Jerry at all.
Never.
Not much, except for maybe that second.
Screw that. That one seems like it was so bad.
Yeah.
He played Tony Clifton really well. Like this is almost a re-review of Andy Kaufman, Man on the Moon. I don't want to do that, but like one of the things that stuck with me most about this documentary is the interviewing Jim Carrey in the early '90s when he's becoming like the Jim Carrey we know, right? The beginning of his career, not beginning, but like the height of like Jim Dumb and Dumber, The Mask and stuff.
Yeah.
And this footage you see of Andy Kaufman and the footage you see of Jim Carrey, like that also has so many overlapping emotions and overlapping feelings about this guy who doesn't, Andy Kaufman, who, you know, there's pain in his life of like maybe not being close with his father, pain of being like the weird one and like having this perspective on life that's so much different than everyone else. But the whole thing is that moment where Jim Carrey's like, yeah, I'm going to be famous. This is what I want. I'll be so famous I can't even walk outside. And in this documentary, there's just that moment where he has that realization that it's like getting exactly what he wants and worked hard to get is also like the worst thing that could possibly happen to him.
He had a moment of he looked very sad afterwards, but I didn't even know if he would. He looked so young there. I thought that was before anything had happened.
I think that was him doing an interview probably early '90s, probably before
maybe some of those
The Mask,
early movies
before
we
Jim
watched.
Carrey came out. He's
That's
probably
what I thought.
He's probably doing some stand up. He might have been with Rodney Dangerfield, probably starting to do like TV. It looked like it was almost Duck Factory TV show.
Because he was in some of those early movies we watched. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was there
stand
at all
up.
yet.
His stand up, definitely after he had been on
something.
The Tonight Show.
Probably,
with
yeah.
What's his name? Oh, I cannot think of who the guy for
Johnny
the
Carson?
Yeah, Johnny Carson. There it is. Hey, the most famous Tonight Show host of all time. I can't think of who he is.
Names are hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. My favorite part of it was the current interviews with Jim, and I just love how I've watched some interviews as we've been doing this project, and we've seen some things about him, but how he's just so self-reflective, and I really like hearing his point of view on things like that. I've read books about things like that too, and I believe those things. I don't always practice them or am in that moment. I feel like he is really. He says, Jim's a character. He's himself, but he's not Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just really enjoy the point of view he has on the universe, kind of.
Here's the world will tell you if you're doing the right thing, or will tell you if this is not going to work out, or this is what will lead you to what you should be doing. The Omen about the guy on the NBC logo before he walks into the Saturday Night Live audition. It's this is not going to be a thing. Might as well go in and try it out and stuff.
Yeah, he definitely does feel like he's so at peace and just so I don't know, just feel he seems so whole to me, and so okay with just being. I think, I don't know. It's very, it's, and he's so eloquent in the way he describes it. Like, I'm so not being eloquent. It's like trying to describe him. Describing it right now.
Describing his metaphysical kind of reality.
I just I was really drawn into the parts when he was talking about things like that. And how he has, plane going by, how he has, he feels that all of his movies that he's gotten over the years have reflected that as well.
Yeah.
Like you said, it talked a lot about the Truman Show.
Well, even just like the Jim Carrey thing, like the Ace Ventura thing, where it's like he's doing these wild characters on stand up and on stage, and it turns into a movie about this wild character. The Mask, it's always, of course, that ego versus id versus like what are our deepest desires, which obviously Jim Carrey has had a lot of thoughts and reflections on that. And then Truman Show, where this actor, this guy who's exists in this world doesn't really doesn't know he's an actor, doesn't know he's in this world. And the Andy Kaufman, and then even when we get into our later stuff, revisiting Dumb and Dumber of as a person unknowing what do I do in the future, maybe he goes I'll go back to my past and touch back on that to try and find myself again. And then finally Sonic, the most recent movie, is he's gone back to who he was at the beginning.
I think he just wanted to have fun.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think he got the offer.
And it was too metaphysical.
I think he got the offer and he's like, yeah, that's going to be fun. Yeah. I feel like that's where he's at in his life. He obviously, he's saying I have no goals. I have no ambitions anymore. He just is. But that doesn't but he did do Sonic after probably this interview.
Yeah. This was 2017.
Yeah. And he did Sonic after that.
Yeah.
So if you're not ambitious or you don't care, you only do it for enjoyment then I think at that point, unless something comes up for him that he's maybe there's projects that will talk to him. But I don't think we'll see a lot from him. Except
for more of the Jim Carrey, or more of he signed on for sequels for Sonic.
Yeah.
And maybe even a spin-off for the Robotnik character, but it's
yeah, and again,
than that,
I don't see him trying to prove himself with dramatic roles, or he doesn't need to prove himself with the funny ones anymore. He just doesn't need to do anything, and so he's really only going to do what he wants to do.
Yeah,
which I think is just not going to be as much.
Yeah, I mean it's funny too because we know that he does the TV show Kidding, which I've mentioned on the podcast that it's the guy who's the Mr. Rogers type children's show host.
I have no concept what it is.
Dealing with all of his depression and what his world what happens to that kind of person when his world falls apart, Is
that what it is?
Yeah, it's an intense show and it's something I've never seen, but I'd love to get into.
We're gonna have to watch some
because it's definitely it feels like it is the next step in the Jim Carrey ethereal world of his world fell apart at one point when his girlfriend died and people blamed him and then he's disappeared from Hollywood and then he comes back and does these stuff, which I think it started in 2018.
Right. Oh, okay.
So it's still a fairly new thing. 3 years, 3 seasons of it. But I mean, if you just look at it,
I have no concept of what it is.
If you look at one of the photos, I'm going to accidentally start it. I don't want to start it.
Yeah.
I was just trying to look at one of the photos, but you can see that it's there's a little bit of happiness and there's a little bit of pain and there's
interesting. But I'm saying I think he only he only is going to do what he wants to do. Now, and maybe this is something that you're right. It's something that he feels like he needs to do for himself.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. It's pretty intense. It's so weird to revisit this movie with the stuff that I've got with some stuff that's going on in my personal life, to have that revisit and have a connection to Man on the Moon in a way that I didn't have before, and then seeing how Jim kind of created that reconnection for everybody else that was performing in the movie based on their own experiences, to revisit and live through something like that. And I'm being purposely a little bit vague about this, but it's that is something that nobody ever gets. And the set of the movie Man on the Moon was so much different at the end of the filming that it was at the beginning of the movie. And it was just like Jim Carrey literally was dying, like, or it made it feel like Jim Carrey was literally going to die at the same time Andy Kaufman did. And it's like, just because we know it's acting and know that it's not like real, emotions become real and are 100% like accurate. I don't know if accurate is the right word, but
I think all of it was a very highly emotional filming, like shoot. I think overall in lots of different ways. I mean, toward the end, everyone was like truly, like you're saying, like it did feel like, you know, because Jim is Andy, and so when he was dying, like it did feel like he was dying.
We're losing him again.
Yeah.
We're gonna lose it if he acts anymore, or if he goes into any more method acting or any more kind of like living this Andy Kaufman life. Jim Carrey will not survive the filming of it. Like, how crazy would that have been? Like, if it's like, well, this is the scene where like Andy Kaufman's like, what if Jim Carrey's heart like just stopped?
It felt that way.
Like watching it and you're like, this is gonna happen.
He's going to die.
Literally going to be not existing.
Yeah, it did feel like that. It was very intense. Yeah. Just watching it, I can't even imagine what it would have been like being there,
being a part of it.
Yeah. All that emotion, but also like, you know, there was a lot of, you know, the guy who played his dad, he would have a fight with his dad, and then the makeup artist was crying. Yeah. Like, oh my God, like this was intense, you know? And
like reminds me of my family.
Yeah. And then like the poor, oh my God. I love the director. What is it? It's Milos. Yeah. He was, I mean, I love Jim doing his voice too. It was just so cute. But like he was so, it had to have been so hard for him, but such a crazy, unique experience to like, you know, be directing and like, you know, having to deal with Andy. I think really nobody liked Tony.
Yeah, I know that was what it was.
Tony was like a lot harder to deal with than Andy was.
That's the truth when they were doing Tony Clifton, when it was like actually happened in real life.
That was so funny though. Like if you were really with someone that annoying, like it would be like really
just
like
take it back a little bit.
And I love that
stop.
When Jim says that Milos called him and was like, I don't know, I can't do this. I can't. And you know, he was talking to Jim, and then Jim was like, well, you know, I'm good at impressions. I can probably act like Andy. I can probably act like Tony. Is that what you want to do?
Fire them?
Is that what you want to do? And then he's like, no. I think he knew like how special it was. He was just so, you know, it was just so difficult at the time. And he's just like, I just wanted to like vent to Jim.
Yeah, you know? I just needed to talk to
Jim for a minute.
You
know,
the nice guy.
He never talks to Jim. He only talks to Andy and Tony.
Yeah,
like.
And I'm curious if it's real. Danny DeVito made a comment in the back to behind the scenes stuff. It was like, whose trailer is that? It's like, we have a trailer for Jim Carrey, and he never used it. It's like there's an Andy trailer and a Bob Zamuda trailer and probably like Andy Kaufman. It
probably really was
3 different trailers for one person.
Yeah,
just like, well, this is what we have to deal with because this is the subject matter, and this is what the subject matter like requires us to deal with.
It's really, I would have loved to been working on that set.
I definitely had some moments in this where I was just like, last semester I was taking a communications class of like what stories are, like what stories mean. I was like, this whole thing is like the power of narrative and like all these stories. I was like, that's cool. I have a question. What do you do when you face the abyss? There's no answer, but there's like a lot of things. Like, yeah, we've already said it. Jim Carrey hit on this.
Are you looking at that from like the Andy perspective or the Jim perspective?
I'm asking myself that.
Oh, like, well, I know, but
that's the perspective of Jim Carrey looking at it through Andy's lens, but also Jim Carrey's own perspective. It's like, what do I do when I have to face the abyss? Like, I don't know. But I think one of the best things is that, you know, we can fail whether we're doing what we want or if we've made a compromise in our lives. Yeah. And it's like, do what you love.
Yeah, I know. I've heard him say that before, and it was emotional hearing him say it and tearing up, talking about his dad. You know, he just just feels bad for his dad. Like he just didn't get to do what he should have done
Yeah,
and could have
and
done.
wanted to do.
And then I think Jim did say, though, like, I sort of did it for both of us in a way, which, is kind of cool. So, yeah, I mean, that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, don't, you can fail at it. You can fail at doing stuff you really don't even want to do.
Yeah.
So why are you doing
Why
that?
are you doing the things you don't want to do?
Do something
Just
you want to do.
Do what you want to do.
But people are scared to fail at what they really want to do, because then what does that mean?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It means that they weren't supposed to do that, but
Maybe
you could
that's not
fail
the
at
right
the thing you weren't supposed to do anyway. I don't know.
It's kind of a big thing.
I don't know. I don't know what else to say about this movie.
Yeah.
If you were going to give it a 5-star rating, what would you give it?
5 stars?
Yeah.
We're doing stars. We're not doing 1 to 10.
1 to 10, whatever.
We
I don't
usually do
remember.
1 to 10.
Okay, it's been a while.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you give it? 1 to 10.
10.
Yeah.
Yep.
Give it a 9.5.
Yeah. I'd watch it again right now.
Would you really?
Yeah.
It's just because there's so much more to like try and really just get a grasp on and like
I
understand,
like really
what
like
Jim
that
wants.
kind of stuff. I just really like that, getting deep into life and what things mean, and I that's just what the whole thing's about.
Yeah, why we do what the things we're doing, what we're running from, what we're heading towards, what we're like.
Yeah.
We had truth be told, we had some very intense conversations like that last night when we were like hanging out.
Yeah.
So it's like getting into the deep philosophical stuff of what life is for both of us as people at this current time in the world.
Yeah.
And it's like watching this after it. It's just like,
Well, it's kind of like, oh,
it
Jim's
makes
there
you,
too.
yeah, everybody
Yeah.
makes you feel this way. It's
Yeah.
like everybody goes through this stuff, and it's
Or
so
people block
crazy.
it out and they don't
Yeah,
they
and
don't
just-
face those things,
they
and
just-
then they're just floating along, not really.
diving into work and ignoring anything else that's like not work or
Yeah.
like drugs and alcohol or whatever choice that it
Right.
is.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
Blocking things like that.
triathlons or it's
Yeah,
like,
whatever
whatever
is
it is
distracting
that
you.
distracts you enough from
Yeah.
facing your own reality or facing your own
Yeah.
mortality.
Yep.
Thanks for watching. This was a good episode.
Go watch it. It was really
go watch
good.
this movie.
Honestly, like
Yeah.
even going back, I don't think I liked Man in the Moon all that much. We also, like you said, we watched
Yeah.
it right after Truman Show, so it was a long day. I think I didn't know Andy what he was about, and so I felt like I didn't get it as well that first when I saw the movie, but I got him now.
Yeah.
And I like him better now, and I like what he was doing better now, and I'd hope I would be the one who's in on the joke and not like, what is that? That's too weird.
I have to deal with Bob, or not Bob. I have to deal with Tony and not the actual Andy.
So like if people do like Man in the Moon or haven't seen it, I mean, I do think it would be a good thing to watch close together. Sometime.
Watch it and then give it a couple hours or a day and then watch this.
So I think it's
good. I think it's
it's a
fantastic.
good thing for people to.
I think it's probably
dive
the best.
into.
I think it's probably the best way to wrap this, I guess, season up of all the movies that we've done.
Yeah.
And it's like, thank goodness they actually had this, because it's like if we were just gonna like stop for a while of doing this thing, it's like, well, that's it.
This felt like
we have a little bit more stuff to hold on to.
This had some closure to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure. It does feel that way.
Yeah.
And like watching Jim in his own words, like this whole thing is about Jim. And then we're watching him do all these characters all the time, but we got to watch him today, and I really like that.
Yeah, it's good. It's beautiful. There's a reason that he's been one of my favorite actors for years, and I think that's on the screen for all of this. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Yeah. Thank you guys for hanging out with us as we watched Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond, featuring a very special contractually obligated mention of Tony Clifton.
So funny.
Yeah, I'm Brian Kondrach.
Carrie Grant.
Check out our other stuff. We don't know what we're doing next after this, but we'll probably find something to come back in some way. There's still a lot of stuff to watch if we actually need to. But thanks again for all the support. Thanks again for listening to us, sharing with your friends if you did that, or even reaching out and talking to me, letting me know that you did watch an episode. I really, really appreciate it.
I always like when someone tells me that.
Be good to each other.
Yeah.
Do what you love.
Yeah.
Because you could fail if you're doing something you don't.
Yep.
Just do what you love.
That sounds good.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.